I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be talking to Jake Weary all about his Netflix series, The Waterfront. And one of the things I was interested in was just that experience that you had when you were first reading the scripts, because I've heard you say that you felt like this was a character that was very different. And one of those key proponents for you was finding the charisma and the charm that he has. And I was interested in how that really centered a lot of the initial ideas you started to have about how to potentially play him and how to embody him on screen.
Yeah, I think I it was nerve-wracking because this like you said and like I'd mentioned before it was a role that felt like new terrain for me. So it's always nerve-wracking when you're trying to kind of build a character and your process changes and you want to be true to what's on the page, but you also want to bring some of yourself to it as well. So it was tricky because in the beginning, I think a lot of people, a lot of the creatives were had a version of who Kane was in their head and this kind of like preconceived idea. Um, and I came into the picture, and obviously, that can change a little bit. So I think there was a little bit of pressure for me to come in and make an impact right away and make a statement and be like, hey, this is who I think Kane is. And that was frightening because there's a part of like usually I play characters that are, you know, very brooding or have something the tension bubbling up and they the only way they confront it is through violence or something and with Kane it felt like this is someone who's like terribly flawed and you see them kind of you see Kane throughout the season make these kind of horrible decisions and it's not like naturally the most likable character, right? Because you see them kind of trying to navigate life in a way that kind of makes you crazy as the viewer and as the audience. You're like, why are you doing this? You have this incredible wife in front of you. Just go home to her. Why are you going to Jenna? Um, so for me, reading the character off the page, like right off the bat, it was conflicting because I'm like, it's not a character that I totally, I agree with. Like their actions, I don't necessarily, as me, as Jake, I don't agree with their actions. So it's kind of this internal struggle that's happening there when you're trying to craft the character. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. And I think that you make such a great point about the character making these questionable choices, but the way that it's written and the way that you've portrayed him, we understand the reasoning behind, when he makes choices with Jenna, we understand their history together. And, we understand him wanting to protect his family or wanting to prove himself to his father. And so was there a lot of really diving into that subtext and that history and his relationships to really make sure that that was always coming across with all of these, as you put it, not great choices?
Yeah, no, of course. That was like paramount coming into it that that all of these relationships are established, whether off screen or on screen. There needs to be this kind of connective tissue that can draw the audience in and present empathy. And it's something I don't like to read reviews and read into a lot of like what how people are responding, but there have been things that I've seen like, trolling through Instagram and stuff that people are I think like initially put off by Kane and he's a very frustrating character. And people want to see like in control characters that are like really in control, it seems, on TV and that like, make all the right choices and it's like pleasing for the audience to see someone like succeed. But that's like what drama is, there's the best movies in my opinion are when you have a character trying to navigate through the narrative and the narrative just keeps forcing them backwards. And I think that was important with Kane. that this isn't a hero that necessarily saves the day. Even towards the end of the season, I think there's a lot of questions left to be answered. So yeah, it was important to build those kind of that backstory up pretty significantly, just so it gives me and Umberly, who plays Jenna, something to work with there on screen.
And I agree with everything that you were just saying about how it just makes so many interesting layers to it. And I know that you and Kevin Williamson, who created the show, really talked a lot about the central father-son relationship and how there's these ideas of aspects of his father that he admires and wants to emulate and be more like, and he feels disappointing not being that. And then also there being these aspects of, I don't ever want to be like this side of you and this part of you. And so I just wanted to ask a little bit about those conversations and how that really helped to center that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there wasn't I don't think we didn't want to linger too much on that like ideology. And I think there was enough backstory there on the page that we could work with. And I had some great conversations with Kevin leading up to shooting that was, was pretty significant for me in terms of just his relationship with his father and how the tiny little vestiges from that I could bring with me on the journey and kind of utilize. And so yeah, there was a conversation, but I think that that Kane and Harlan's relationship kind of represent this kind of universal feeling of needing to belong, whether it's in your family or your friends or maybe your chosen family. There's that like overwhelming need to feel represented and belong. And I think that was definitely a theme that we were going for. Even despite his father's kind of control over him, and there's love there, and there's a need to be seen and recognized. So
There's also this sense in him that he kind of believes this mantra of him not being good enough. He feels like he never quite fulfilled his potential, and
yeah.
his dad instills all of this rhetoric in him as well. And there's times where he literally says out loud, "I'm not good enough."
Mhm.
And I was interested in how you found that impacted him in a lot of ways in playing him.
Yeah, I think it brought levity to the character. I think like anytime you are you're playing a character who's imperfect and inconsistent. It's really great because it just gives you some place to go as the actor. And whether that is you can go outward and fight against it or embrace it and bring levity to it and humor and self-deprecation and all these things where I found reading into the character, these were opportunities for me to kind of play and have fun in that space. Someone who is um, you know, almost self-loathing to a point where they can kind of laugh at themselves and be self-deprecating. I think that was something that I thought was an opportunity, or I saw as an opportunity to, bring some a charismatic side of Kane to not take life so seriously and yeah, to be able to kind of laugh at his misfortunes a little bit was important for me, at least in prepping for the character. So
I mean, you mentioned laughter, and I've also heard you say that you kind of immediately found some of the comedy and some of the humor in the scripts early on. And what was that like in terms of just finding some of the humor to play to in amongst everything else that's going on in these narratives and these storylines with him?
yeah, it was really difficult actually because I'm so used to internalizing everything and the characters I play that I think it was a note that I kept getting was to smile more and that was something that I can't really like inorganically come up with, I think. So I had to find moments in a lot of the scenes that that gave me an opportunity, an in to play and play off my, my um, the actor opposite me. And I was very fortunate enough to have actors alongside me that could really embolden me and and that are so charming and bring something so unique to their characters, and whether it's Umberly or Danielle or Holt, all of them, Melissa, they're so they're all so talented that it wasn't too difficult for me in the end to find those moments, and to Holt is just so naturally he just has this kind of infectious like lightness to him that made it really easy for me to have fun. And I think we were all of us were constantly laughing on that set. So yeah, it presented itself to me pretty easily. But in the process leading up to it, it was difficult. So
And you mentioned Melissa, and I wanted to ask about the crux of that sibling relationship, because the first few episodes, there's such a distance between them, and then there's that moment where he finds her in the middle of the street when she's passed out in the middle of the rain, and then all of a sudden there's this tenderness that exists when he realizes she's also been doing things to try and protect the family as well, which is something that's so central to him. And I wanted to ask about how that particular moment in their story together really, really created a place where you could change the dynamic and bring them back together.
yeah, I mean, it was just that's a testament to Kevin's writing. I mean, I think there was that opened the door to a whole, a different side of these characters that we are, we are given in the first four episodes. It's a nice shift, um, in the way that Kane is portrayed, and the way that Bree is portrayed, to see, anytime on television or film to see, and then in theater to see family dynamics and reconciliation happen. It's like so rewarding and it feels so good, and you want to see family come together. And um, so I thought just that was always an opportunity there to see that side of both of our characters, and for us to come together and kind of unbox all of this, kind of hidden, buried trauma that we both of our characters harbor towards one another too. It's super significant. And yeah, it was just so fun to work with Melissa on those scenes. I think we both really understand each other, so it made the work that much easier and come naturally. So.
One of the things that works so well in Kane as a character as well is the fallibility of him, and the fact that he's not adept and he's not comfortable in all of these situations that he's suddenly finding himself in. He was putting himself in these scenarios to try and take care of his family, and now he's failing and not succeeding, and things become so dangerous around him. And I was interested in just finding that side of him, but also how you almost had to arc him out, getting a not more comfortable, but just like a little bit more able to handle the situations.
Yeah, I mean you need a place to go, right? Like they can't just remain in limbo throughout the entirety of the season. So we definitely that was always kind of an arc that we were working towards with the first season. I think there's a lot left to be seen, and there's just a there's so much more there. But yeah, I think like humans are inconsistent, and I think that was important for me to with Kane to for that to be present there. That each situation that he finds himself in, we're seeing him kind of learn how to navigate each moment, and through failure and through embarrassment, and there's all these little moments that we see him uh grow from that kind of childlike insecurity into this kind of confident man. Um, and we wanted shades of Harlan to kind of show up too in Kane, and you know, his ability to take a life and to murder someone in cold blood, I think is kind of a pretty big indicator that he very much is, you know, comes from uh, his father, and that he is blood, and there is something there that is, you know, kind of, uh, yeah, hereditary and, you know, runs down the line. So, um, yeah, I think there was colors and kind of, um, yeah, a nice playful balance there with Kane that was so fun to play.
And I heard that in the scene where him and his dad confront the guys who hurt Kane's wife, that originally that Kane was going to attack them and he was going to retaliate. But in the end,
Mhm.
that scene was taken out and we see him walk away and we see him incredibly rattled by it.
Mhm.
And was that something that, you really found to be quite a pivotal moment of he's faced with this choice and he doesn't take it. And so that really sets the stage for also a lot of the subsequent moments and interactions.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because that was a moment that I had a little bit of trouble navigating. But I actually thought the violence was warranted. And I think that kind of going back to what I was saying before with the audience wanting Kane to do something, to take a stand, to not be such a pushover. Um, I do feel like that act of violence would have been more pleasing to the audience potentially. And but I'm happy that that wasn't in there because then that kind of gives him somewhere to go emotionally. If you make that decision too early, then all of a sudden that tension is released in a way to where violence then all of a sudden is very kind of um, gratuitous and flippant, and like you want violence to be earned. Um, Otherwise, it's just becomes watered down, and then you know it's uninteresting. Um, so yeah, I'm actually happy that that wasn't in there ultimately.
And it also makes that final moment in the last episode where he does end up being the one to shoot Grady and to take a life even more impactful because we've seen him constantly resist violence.
Yeah.
And what did you find in that pivotal moment for Kane as a character? And, he's not really processing in depth, but he has that instinct reaction.
Yeah, it's the point of no return, right? It's that moment of, you know, disassociation, and you're all of a sudden your brain and your heart and your body, your physical body, they're nothing has is meeting and in one. I think um, you know, your brain's telling you to do something completely different, and then your physical, you know, it manifests itself entirely differently in your body. So I think like for me in that moment, that was my goal, was to kind of portray the confusion of it all and the what did I just do? And also, you know, um, you kind of see shades of that in that final scene with Peyton as well. And I hope that comes through that there's this he's at a loss for what to do now and where does he go from here. Um, I think he's this kind of lost puppy at the end. And he's coming home to you know, a pretty uncertain situation that then is presented to himself as, no, you're here with me, and this is what we're gonna do, and this is our plan. Um, and it's kind of creepy and weird, and it's this kind of beautiful scene that has all these dimensions there, and yeah, it was really cool to play that.
With the fact that he constantly refuses or, kind of can't find the words to tell Peyton everything that's going on, did you feel like he was on the verge of telling her any particular moments, or did you feel like he just always felt like not telling her was the best way he could protect her?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and I think that's the other frustrating part of Kane too. I think the audience wants him to just be honest with her and let her in on everything. But that you have to remember that he's never been in this situation before. I don't think we know, and no one's ever given him the rule book of criminality and what that is and how, what do I tell my wife when I'm in the throes of a potential, incarceration and like what does honesty mean there and who can I trust? And I think all of these things are all these emotions are kind of flooding in and I really don't think Kane can trust anybody. And that's why I think Jenna's character is so important because it shows that part of him that is like the only kind of real thing he can grab onto while the train is just moving along. Um, so, so yeah, I think I think maybe there are moments where he's on the verge. Um, but ultimately, I do think the only part of him that is sane is the part of him that's saying, do not, implicate anyone in this. Like, this is what you've put yourself in this situation. You have to take ownership. You have to be responsible. So for him, he does want to protect his family, and the way to do that is to not implicate them at all. So
And when you were filming all of those scenes on the boat, there's a lot of intricacies that are going on. There's a huge amount of movement. There's a lot of stunt work that goes into it. And
yeah.
so I just wanted to ask about your experience and some of the intricacies in filming those scenes.
Yeah, it was a little I did feel in talking about how different this role was and how this was new terrain, that felt like kind of, getting back on the wagon a little bit for me. Just doing Animal Kingdom for 6 years, there was that was so fundamentally part of the show that it became kind of second nature. But it was fun to do it in a different capacity like that. And we had such a great stunt crew and we just had a really good team around us. John Coatman, our stunt coordinator, was just awesome to work with. And um, yeah, it was also so fun to work with Rafa in those moments too, because I think, him doing 911 and we kind of came from similar territory there. So we got to kind of flex on each other a little bit and it felt like, a little Starsky and Hutch there for a second. And so yeah, it's always cool to just like kind of relive your childhood experiences of like, playing cops and robbers and stuff and like get to do it in real life and slide across the floor of a boat and with a gun and yeah, they're little like kind of pinch me moments where you're like, I can't believe this is what I get to do for a living. So
And when Kane first starts getting thrown into all of these different situations at the beginning, one of the things that his dad is trying to instill in him is talk less. Words are going to
yeah,
get you in trouble and words are going to get you killed. And he very
yeah,
much goes in with, like, no, I think I can just charm the pants off of everyone and everything's going
yeah,
to be great.
yeah.
And what was the difference you found in playing some of those later scenes where he does kind of learn to pull himself back a little bit more and be a little bit more inward?
Well, I think you kind of answered it there. I think he learns from his mistakes. I think we see him actively, um, you know, going through the process of elimination. It's like, okay, well, this didn't work in the past, and it seems like the more I'm with my father in these kind of these precarious situations, I see how he controls the situation, and I need to learn from that if I'm going to protect him and protect myself. So I think that's kind of we're seeing that through the course of those final four episodes. That organically kind of takes shape. There's almost a bit of confidence that grows in him too, in terms of even how he's carrying a gun and kind of carrying himself into these environments in this situation. But I do think there's also a bit of tunnel vision with Kane there, and Grady. I think that his sights are set on eliminating Grady, in whatever that means, however that takes shape. So
And when Kane's with his dad at the end of that last episode, his dad essentially is saying, you know, I didn't want you to leave home when you were younger because I didn't want to be by myself and I didn't want to do things alone. And he even mentions how he always saw it as a family business that he'd had with his dad and wanting to continue that. And I wanted to ask you about that moment for Kane and kind of what you feel he found in that, because it feels like the closest thing he's going to get to an apology or that his dad is capable of.
yeah, I think that moment really hit home for me because I think being a father myself, and my daughter's only just turned 3, but still there's that part of me that just wants to control her environment so and overwhelmingly so. Um, and I just want her to be my best. I want to be her best friend. I want her to be my best friend, and I don't ever that I can't even fathom the idea of letting her out into the world yet. So I can empathize with Harlan and his decision to keep Kane there and keep him home. Because I think as a father, that's you want to cling on to that, especially if your father before did the same thing with you. Yeah, I think that on paper, that scene was always such a pivotal moment for the two of them. And you know, it's not like they're gonna go and hug it out and all is forgiven. I think that it's just kind of that the the truth, and Harlan is able to be vulnerable with his son, and be honest with him is such a it's such a moment of growth for Harlan as well. Um, yeah, it's just a really special moment to see them grow together.
It is, and I really appreciate you talking all about this character and all about the show. So, congratulations on all of the success of the series, and thank you so much, Jake.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.